said, we've heard. Can I remind everybody that we've heard all your comments. If something's been said before, please don't say it again, because we've heard it time and time again. If you have something new, please step forward and say it, but if it's something that's already been touched on and said before, please don't say it again, otherwise we're gonna be here till tomorrow morning.
Is that the point of the public hearing?
But that's our right.
Yeah,
That's our right. That's why we're here. We can restate things, because if they have the same concern as me, they can say it. They're another citizen with the same concern that I have.
I don't think he's telling you that you can't speak.
Just say it. It's what it sounds like.
Nobody's telling, again, just to be clear, right? Everybody's been allowed to speak. I think what he's suggesting, if you agree with something that somebody else said, you just get up and say they agree with it. But certainly, if you want to get up and speak and say what you want, certainly people can.
What legal criteria do we have to determine whether somebody's saying something that's already been said?
No,
I mean, it's kind of chilling free speech in the First Amendment to tell people, don't come up here if we haven't heard it before. Because each person has their subjective experience as a public, and they want to be heard out.
Yeah, to be clear, no one's being told they can't speak. The suggestion was, there might be something that somebody else said that they can just get up and say that. But again, people have the right to say what they want to say in this public hearing. That's been determined by this board from the beginning. No one's been told not to speak. It's just, our process to get everybody to be heard, respectful of people's time, was a suggestion made. Again, there's no chilling free speech. You can say what they want.
I would just be mindful of the First Amendment obligations this township has to its citizens.
and repetition for emphasis. Amen.
My name is Maria Simon. I'm a resident of the Forest View neighborhood located at the intersection of Cove Run and Rich Hill Roads. I'm here this evening to share my concern about the traffic that the Cove Run road development will generate and potential safety issues. According to the Indiana and West Deer Township 10-year joint comprehensive plan from 2010, which is now 5 years out of date, the intersection of Cove Run Road and Route 910 is explicitly identified as problematic. Specifically, the plan states that the intersection was officially found to be deficient during a roadway sufficiency analysis conducted by HRG. Key takeaways from the study regarding this specific area include existing deficiency, the intersection was failing to meet standard traffic safety or capacity requirements under its current conditions in 2010. Future impact, the report notes that as the townships grow and new developments occur, the resulting increase in traffic will worsen these conditions. Because it is flagged as a deficient area, the plan specifies that Indiana and West Deer Townships require additional roadway and intersection improvements to meet sufficiency standards over their 10-year growth management strategy. Again, this study was out of date as of 2020, and the board has no active plan to create a new comprehensive plan. Since this comprehensive plan was authored, again 16 years ago, the Miller gas well has gone in at the top of Cove Run, generating truck traffic. The Richmont development was built, creating more traffic on Cove Run, especially during school hours, and now 50 new homes are being built down the road at Blue Run. The developer shared that they had a firm conduct the traffic study on their behalf. This study was conducted on a single weekday at the beginning of March for a total of 4 hours, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. Additionally, the traffic study initially states that there is a traffic light at Cove Run and 910. Then later in the study says there is no traffic light. Please, you can reference section 11, page 2 of the developer's plan. One singular data point is not enough to make a decision of this magnitude. The township must work with PennDOT or another third party to have another traffic study completed. Additionally, after listening to the developer's presentation tonight about the crosswalks and the bus shelters, they're proposing to put a bus shelter across the street from Gamelands. You're gonna have kids waiting for the bus across from Gamelands. Buses do not enter plans in these districts. I live in Forest View. Bus doesn't come into my plan. We have friends in Shawnee Ridge and Richmont. The buses do not go into those plans. So you're gonna have kids waiting for the bus, crossing the street, crossing the top of Cove Run, across from Gamelands. This study must look at summer traffic as well. When Founders Field and Emerling Park are at their busiest, on any given day, there could be 2 soccer games at Founders, 3 baseball games, and 4 parties at Emerling, since it has 4 rentable pavilions. Additionally, Camp Deer Creek is in session, with families and buses accessing 910 from Cove Run. Throw in additional traffic from Emerling Ice Cream and the other soccer field across Emerling Ice Cream, and traffic getting onto 910 will be an absolute disaster. Just this past weekend, Steel City Soccer hosted an event at Founders Field where they publicized the size, stating that 1,387 people attended. I have to say, some of my neighbors, some of my new friends went around and knocked doors in our district, letting people know about this hearing. Because apparently because you publicized the first one, you didn't have to publicize the second one. So people didn't even know this was happening. And I've had the honor and the pleasure of meeting so many of my neighbors who I have never met before. And I've had so many conversations since May 13th with those neighbors. And every single person I talked to said that they don't want this.
Excuse me,
They don't
just a
want this
second.
plan.
Excuse me just a second. Can we shut off these commercials on the TV here? I don't wanna be accused of supporting some firm or something that's. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. But every neighbor that I talked to up and down Rich Hill Road, in the various plans, nobody wants this. And I will tell you the number one thing people said to me, I don't want this, but it doesn't matter. I could show up that meeting, it doesn't matter. People in this township have lost faith. They have lost faith that people here act in their best interest. They have lost faith that you will do the right thing. As that gentleman said, nobody wants this that's here. As Mr. Banta said, have the courage. People don't want this and have lost faith that you will do the right thing. I'm begging you, get a good traffic study and do the right thing. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Ed Banks, I live at 3697 Saxonburg. Something that was kind of put to rest last meeting was people asked for lines going down the backside of Cove Run, coming toward Emerling. And I know the road's 18.5 feet wide, it's not required, but those S-bends are gonna be dangerous. At the minimum, we could put some center stripes so that people at least get a shot at learning how to drive on that road. And I know the applicant said they're not willing to fund deficiencies in our system. But the very first thing they're asking for is an exemption so they can fix a deficiency in the road system, so they'll get access, clear line of sight to be able to build their plan. Thank you.
Nettie Owens, 109 Bruno Drive. Thank you for continuing this from the last meeting so that we could continue to make our points and for the developer to make an attempt to improve what was being proposed. And I'm glad to hear that coming back for 5 meetings, there was some green space added into the plan. That's great to see. A point on the traffic study, and I'm so glad this was already brought up, but there are events at Emerling Park, and that was never considered in the traffic study. So the traffic study professionals said, you know, you would consider it differently if you were studying traffic next to Heinz Field, and so I think it's really important to consider that Emerling Park is there, and that was never, you know, brought into the conversation. It's not Heinz Field, but we do get a lot more people there on a very small road that doesn't even have lines on it, as folks have already mentioned. There is also commentary about the open space and how the open space on an MDR would be 0. That's with the assumption on a straight MDR subdivision, would be 0. That's on the assumption that the folks come on, build a house and cut down all the trees. And so many people come here for the whole purpose of coming to a place that has trees and natural space. The likelihood that they're going to take a lot and just clear cut it is unlikely, especially considering that that lot, as we've seen, has very steep slopes and streams on it. So we can see that that if this were proposed as a straight subdivision, there would be significantly less than 172 houses. I think the number was 134 homes. So that does reduce the impact substantially on the impervious space, the disruption of the land, etc. Unless the developer is saying that he would come and totally clear cut it, which I guess would be his prerogative, but highly don't recommend that, for a course of action. The construction runoff that he spoke of and having, barriers to it being a problem during construction, I wanna note that Blue Run, likely also was required to have those, runoff protections during its construction, which is still ongoing, but the runoff has been substantial, causing basically mudslides across 910 during heavy rain. So I can't imagine that, that a site like this with 3 times as many homes, more than 3 times as many homes as that, would be much different. I can't see how when you remove and move the earth that you're going to somehow contain that without vegetation, in place. I do think it's concerning that they looked and saw no endangered species, but that there is evidence that we do have endangered species in that area, so it seems that the supervisors should probably do their own research on that. We've heard so much about the surrounding game lands and only have one example of a case where there's even an attempt at a housing development in game lands in Pennsylvania. What I would love to see are the images of the housing development with, clear lines where those game lands are, and distances from backyards to it. Signs to say the game lands are here are not the same as signs that go all along the perimeter of the housing development to say, this is a housing development, aren't you going somewhere else? This also could be less of an issue, if we weren't trying to put so many houses in this particular space, they could be further from the edges of those game lands. There's a lot of people here. This room has twice as many people as it did the last time that we came for a public hearing. And you'll notice that on plans like Frederick Farms and Blue Run, we didn't have the same level of outcry. So there's something wrong with this plan if it elicits this kind of a response. And our PRD was just modified with the intention to make sure that we didn't have plans like this come into Indiana Township. We made those setbacks and requirements for a reason. The only reason to ask for a modification on the setbacks is because there are too many houses trying to be put into this space, and that is exactly why the PRD was rewritten. So if we're gonna toss the PRD within a year of accepting it, then why do we even have it? Why did we bother to go for 2 years to sit in the planning commission, going back and forth, line by line about those, if you're going to toss it at the first moment that you can? My last point is on the comprehensive plan. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting, our township manager said that based on the comprehensive plan from 2010, fewer houses have gone in to Indiana Township, which is probably accurate. I don't imagine that he's misrepresenting that. But the nature of Indiana Township and the surrounding area has changed, because back in 2010, we didn't have a fracking well. We didn't have the Miller well pad that came in 2017. And that is very close to this particular plan as well. I had someone contact me, she was here for a while, but had to leave, that said that she's within 1 mile of a fracking well pad, and that has contaminated the stream near where she lives to be uninhabitable by life around it, coming through it. So, I think that it seems silly to say we're going to notify people that there's a fracking well pad and there's a game lands right next to the new house that you're buying and think that we're gonna sell these houses. People do not want to live in that kind of neighborhood. So then we would have disrupted and changed the landscape for nothing. To have a bunch of houses that won't sell, that doesn't really make sense.
someone who cares deeply about this community, as you all have shown. Some of you have been in this, in your positions for decades. You're the reason why people wanna move here. We're just asking you to keep it this way. It's so simple, it seems so simple. I understand that Mr. Chad Weaver is not here this evening, okay. He may not be present, but many claims made in this proposal originate from his company, and I believe they deserve answers. I recently listened to an interview Mr. Weaver gave on iHeartRadio. He described his developments as creating more opportunities to do fun stuff. That statement caught my attention because, before they made their, adjustment to the plan, I struggled to find the opportunity within this proposed plan for that fun stuff. There's no amenities, there's no playground. My son and I, who he just completed 9th grade at Fox Chapel High School, and he just recently learned how to calculate slope grade. So him and I looked at the plan together. Some of the slopes are extraordinarily steep, including 78%, 60%, 58%, and 37%. I don't have a picture of these because the secretary wouldn't let me take any pictures of the plan from the big binder. The proposal describes these wooded slopes as open space for use and enjoyment. I would ask Mr. Weaver if he was here, if he would let his children play on those slopes. And how do you kick a soccer ball on a 37% slope? You don't, cause I live in the hills over there, and we lose soccer balls all the time. It's ridiculous. When a mother's preparing dinner and her children wanna go outside and play, where do they go? Their 10-foot front yard? I'm sorry, that does not fit the character of the rest of Indiana Township. It just doesn't. My second thing I wanna talk about concerns the claim that this PRD is in the best interest of the public because it preserves more trees than development under the current zoning. I appreciate the new, mock-up NDR plan that they, provided with the 60 single-family units and the 74 attached. With these extraordinarily steep slopes, and this was already said, but I'm gonna say it again for emphasis, a lot of these areas are undevelopable. You cannot develop on a 78, 60, or 58% slope. You can't. So you cannot jam that many houses. That was a good picture, but honestly, it seems unlikely that that would be actually built to their design. If preservation is truly the goal, how does a request for a cul-de-sac more than twice the township's permitted length support this objective? You see the picture where that is all completely paved. How does that save any trees? How does that? That's not our goal. The ordinance allows for 1,200 feet. This proposal seeks for 2,740 feet. That is not a small exception. Would you agree with that? This is a major departure from the standards established that you guys worked so hard on with that ordinance. I would ask the board, if the ordinance says 1,200 feet, why did you choose that number? Was it to keep this from happening? I know you're not allowed to answer, I thought you were gonna be able to answer. At what point do repeated exceptions undermine the very purpose of having standards? This to me points to a need to return to the PRD ordinance and make changes or eliminate it and start over. I would ask the board to reflect on the township's own comprehensive plan, which identifies forested hillsides and pristine streams as among Indiana Township's greatest assets. For years, you all have sat here and listened to people object Indiana Trails, Blue Run, Foxwood Trail, the courtyards at Hidden Falls, and many others. Residents have consistently voiced the same concern. Once these lands are gone, they're gone. That's it, they're bulldozed, they're now cement and whatever they put in them. Have we truly explored every option for preservation? Have we engaged organizations like the Allegheny Land Trust, the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program, and others who specialize in conserving sensitive lands? Long Run was preserved through a partnership involving Allegheny Land Trust and public funding because community leaders recognized its ecological value. Deer Creek is recognized as an exceptional value stream and supports naturally reproducing trout populations, making it one of the region's most important aquatic resources. Given the significance of these natural assets, have we, you, as a group, exhausted every opportunity to protect them before development? Or is that on us as citizens? Are we required to do all the legwork on that? Or do you do any of that to conserve your area? One question I had for them is, what is the impact on the wetlands in these areas when, as he described the retention ponds, that they're expected to let less runoff? Does that dry up our wetlands? Do we know?
There was no map wetlands on the site.
I'm sorry, could you repeat whatever you said before?
I believe there's no map wetlands on the site, we haven't looked at any wetlands on the site.
But long
I'm sorry,
run,
did you hear that? She got it, okay.
okay, well, Long Run is right at the base of it, and so is Deer Creek, so the wetlands are going to be impacted. Will they be dried up? I would love to know that, because you're holding all the water up. I want to conclude by speaking not to legal arguments, but to your spirit and your moral compass. In that same interview I mentioned, Mr. Weaver said that it was always about watching my father and mother work hard and really do the right thing. I truly believe you're faced not only in business, but in life with different times where you can choose to do the right thing or the wrong thing. Maybe the wrong thing is easier, or doing the right thing is going to cost you money. What does that look like in 10 or 15 years down the road? Can you lay your head on the pillow at night and know that you did the right thing? I ask you as a board to consider that question as well. We are not the creators or the permanent owners of this land. We are temporary caretakers. We inherited this land from the people who came before us, and we hold it in trust for those who come after us. And I take that very seriously. It almost makes me want to bring tears to my eyes because I love this area. It's amazing. So the question before us is not simply what can be built, how many houses can we jam in there, but what should be built. And whether years from now we will be able to say that we acted as good stewards of something precious. I will leave you tonight with a passage of scripture that has remained on my heart throughout this process. Woe to those who join house to house and field to field until there is no more room. I thank you for listening, and I hope you all take that.
Good evening. Bill Simpson, Rich Hill Road. Everybody says about the deficiencies of Cove Run. Until recently, Cove Run used to close for the winter time. That's how bad that road was. Right now, Cove Run is probably in the best shape it's ever been. And from the proposal, it sounds like from Ridge Hill Road to the development is gonna be water and gas. From the development to Deer Creek is gonna be sewer line. So that means 100% of that road is gonna be dug up. And for a development that size, you're not talking a 4-inch water line. You're probably talking a 12-inch water line. And that's gonna take easy half the road. Not to mention the gas line, which is gonna take the other half of the road. So you essentially excavated the whole road. Now you gotta go down, the S turns down the other side. Granted, during construction, you have a dump truck, you have an excavator, you have a work crew, and pipe fittings. So I don't see that road staying open during construction. And who's gonna pay to restore that road after the construction? Like I said, it's in the best shape it's ever had. I've lived here all my life. We used to ride school buses down that road and go past the pet cemetery on McClellan. So, you know, the school buses made a bit of a mistake. And another thing, well, there would be storm runoff during the construction because you excavated ditches up both sides of the hills. So that's another thing to contend with since you're worried about stormwater. And there's a development going in Aspinwall and Sharpsburg underneath the Highland Park Bridge. Is that correct? I think so. That development runs from Aspinwall, Sharpsburg, down to Etna. And how many children is that gonna put into the Fox Chapel School District? It's supposed to be a huge development, and that's a lot of people from.
I mean, I think it's federally funded with affordable housing.
It's still gonna impact Fox Chapel School District.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's just a question of whether
affordable housing in
we're taking a look at that.
the Fox Chapel School District.
I agree.
That's a lot of houses from Aspinwall to Etna, waterfront property, townhouses and everything else. It's not gonna be green space.
I'm looking at it from the perspective of my constituents. I represent my constituents, I don't represent Indiana Township there. I mean, Darren, you got it backwards. I represent my citizens, District 5. I don't represent the township.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That encompasses Fox Chapel School District, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for representing us.
Already in the township.
I'm look, you know, I grew up in Morningside. Where's Mr. Quinn? I don't know. I guess he took off, but, and my family's from up on Cherry City between that
Okay.
and Nova, so we know about it.
Yeah.
I know about that.
Yeah.
And when I said I think this is my philosophical position. I represent the taxpayer. The taxpayer pays the school's taxes. So something going on in Aspinwall or Sharpsburg, that affects the school district. I want
Right.
to see a big picture of all this stuff. But
Right.
we all have a different philosophy of how we represent our constituents.
Right. So, all right.
I thought the sign said Indiana Township, that's all I'm saying.
I represent District 5. Yeah, I work for the people out there, not the people behind the table.
All right.
And Aspinwall.
With that, I'll rest.
Anybody in District 5? Do I represent you?
You've done a wonderful job for District 5.
Thank you.
Okay,
Educate Darren.
That's enough of this, okay?
Well, he's saying that I represent Aspinwall because I'm not
Would
from
you
Indiana
guys
Township.
please quit arguing like children?
It is so.
I haven't raised my voice at all.
No.
I just said it, we're Indiana.
Okay, we're done.
You don't have to raise your voice to make a fool of yourself.
I know, you don't talk.
Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
Thank you. Adam Yates, Log Cabin Road. Thanks for having this hearing and for your time. You all have very difficult jobs. I don't envy you at all. But I appreciate you hearing us out. I didn't come here expecting to speak, I'll be honest with you. I came here because my wife asked me to, and I said yes. You know, sometimes that's what we do. I just want to make 2 quick points. I love to fly fish. I take my kids fly fishing. We have Deer Creek right here, and it's an amazing fishery. I think you probably all know that, but if not, go down there first day of trout. You'll see it's an amazing fishery. To think that the required mitigation efforts for this development would prevent negative impacts on Deer Creek, I think is naive. Second, now that I see on the maps where this is situated, personally, just common sense, I'm not in your business, I'm not a legal person by any means, and don't know about land development. But it seems surprising to even consider this surrounded by state game lands. If you fired a rifle, you know those homes are in risk. Sure, the homeowner would take that risk knowingly, right? They buy it, they know it's there. But some of that risk, I would think, would fall to this board as well. And I would think that it would be in the board's best interest to slow walk this as much as possible to assure that that risk is minimized. Better yet, say no. If it ends in a legal fight with the developer, you know you're fighting on behalf of your constituents. That's all I have.
All right, I'll say.
Go ahead.
My name is David Sowers, 29 Barnhart Street, Rural Ridge. About 15 years ago, the township permitted a housing development to come in, Rural Ridge Estates. It's a hill above my house, cleared out 80 acres of trees. Put new trees in and houses. When it rains, my backyard is a swamp. My neighbor's backyard is a swamp. We both have sump pumps in our basement because of water runoff. But you change the grade, you change the water tables constantly when you do this stuff. We live with it. You can come over on a dry day and still see water running down the street or down the storm sewers. Question is, we're putting all this development. You added on homes over in Saxon Brook Boulevard. You got Blue Run. You're adding this. Are you going to increase the police force? Because right now, as I'm concerned with Rural Ridge, we don't have much of a police presence in our area. We have a lot of issues, safety issues. They're really not being met by this board at all. And talking about the traffic study is just that localized area. Now, if you come up 910, heading west, you want to make that right turn into Cove Run. It's a tight turn. You've got to come back at an angle to get on the road. When it was put in, it wasn't a wide open area to do it. So that's a big concern because everybody said, there's a lot of things happening down in Emerling Park anymore. It's crowded. You got development on 910 there. It's not going to be a good position to have homes up on that hill. And I travel that hill all the time. I have family, friends, and coming down that road, when buses are coming, enjoy yourself because it's not a wide road at all for anything like that. So, thank you.
Hi, Jamie Dillon, I live at 1059 Shawnee Ridge. I was looking over there at George Washington. We have historical figures and founding fathers and mothers who made us who we are, where we are. And Rachel Carson is one of those. She came from right here, and changed the whole, or started the whole environmental movement. I believe bald eagles were almost extinct until her book. And now we have them living right here. You live right here. I live right here. And I'm thrilled to be in the company of bald eagles. And I'm thrilled to be in the company of you. But I'm more thrilled to walk in the shoes, walk in the same trees. I don't really have her shoes, it was metaphorical, but walk in her shoes. Walk in the same trees, splash in the same streams as Rachel Carson did. Thank you. I know some of you professionally, you don't recognize me, but I'm nobody.
Just take your name.
I have nobody. I live in Indiana Township. My grandparents lived here, this is gonna make them nobody. My parents lived here, this is gonna make them nobody. I've walked the Rachel Carson Trail. Yes, there's the salamanders, there's the bats. I've seen bald eagles and everything. Right where this is going in, I've seen golden eagles. Have I seen golden eagles? But nobody. If you vote yes on this, everybody here is nobody. Patty Sokolis, 106 Cove Run Road.
Hi, I'm Liz Venturino, 123 Isley Road, and I'm a resident of Indiana Township. I think we're here today because of the misalignment with the comprehensive plan. A lot has changed, and I'm here to draw attention to that. We're all aware at this point that Indiana Township sits at the headwaters of some pretty significant waterways like Deer Creek and Little Deer Creek. They're both listed as impaired waterways by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. I really thank you guys for doing the research. I thought I had the most questions. I only had 47, but it sounds like someone had 52. I want to meet that person. But our creeks don't know municipal boundaries. Every rooftop, every paved road, every cleared hillside in this watershed adds to the cumulative load that those waterways already can't handle. Since 2002, the township and its immediate neighbors have approved or are actively considering more than 875 new residential units, from Frederick Farms to the Preserve at Blue Run, from Indiana Trails to Cove Run Road, and including Rose Ridge and Kingston Plan in West Deer Township, which drain into the same system. That's not a number from an advocacy group, that's from the DEP permit records and Planning Commission minutes. They're all public documents. The comprehensive plan must grapple honestly with the cumulative reality. Individual approvals that each appear compliant in isolation are adding up to a watershed impact that our infrastructure was never designed to absorb. I'm really impressed with everyone's mention of a world-renowned conservationist that lives in our backyard, and I'm sure her spirit is here with us today. I'd ask the board to consider 3 specific commitments in this first, or right now. First, a formal cumulative stormwater impact analysis before any further PRD approvals. Second, an explicit stewardship covenant tying future developments to measurable watershed health benchmarks. And third, recognition that Emerling Park's deed protected riparian corridor along Little Deer Creek is not just open space, it's a functional piece of this township's water infrastructure, protected by a 1972 legal covenant that runs with the land. Stewardship is not opposition to growth, it's an obligation to ensure that what we build today is not burdened with every resident and every watershed for everyone that lives here tomorrow. Everything that we do here today in Deer Creek, it ends up in the Mississippi River. And as a Yinzer myself, I want to protect the water to the point. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to make a comment before we close?
I've made so many changes to my thing. Can I just ask 3 questions? Thanks.
Could you state your name again?
Katie Bantha, Milldam Road. With the addition of the crosswalk across Cove Run Road, I mean, when you walk a city street, people don't pay attention to those. So what would be, would they be adding flashing lights or like anything that brings attention to this crosswalk? So that kids crossing aren't just running across in a crosswalk that speeding people not going the speed limit on that road would notice. Are they allowed to?
I think you can answer all your questions and at the end if they want.
Okay, okay. They mentioned back and forth about the road being private. I was at the last planning commission meeting where the law was stated over and over that only 5 houses on a private road. Is that the same as right now? Is that the same with the plan with all those townhomes? Looks like more than 5. Just wondering, I don't know, get my stuff straight. Also, on the property, as my husband mentioned, bog willow, there also is a willow oak, which is, I'm sorry, he said bog oak, this is a willow oak. It's under 8 inches, so it may not have met the study, but it is, it carries the S2, S3 conservation ranking. So, again, the information that was given about no endangered species, I would say is not accurate. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I see nobody else approaching the mic.
So, Mr. Graham, anything that you or your client would like to respond?
I just have 1 or 2 things that I'd like to respond to. So the first one has to deal with the statements regarding modifications. So the alternative plans that we presented tonight removed all the modifications if you choose the option that doesn't give the 10-foot setback. We've asked for the 10-foot setback, but if you decide not to give it and it goes to a 20-foot setback, there are no modifications requested in this plan. No deviations from your ordinance, no exceptions. With respect to, and I don't want to get into every little comment, but I'm going to pick one as an example. If the board felt that something was needed on a crosswalk to call attention to it, that's certainly a reasonable condition you can put on the plan. I don't think that that would be the way you would normally approach this in this type of an area with flashing lights and things like that. But if the board felt that's what you need on a crosswalk, that's a reasonable condition that would be acceptable to a developer. Beyond that, just my final point is, you spent a lot of time to develop your PRD ordinance. It's not an old and outdated ordinance. It's a relative vintage ordinance. And you put in place regulations, and people that purchase property and start development plans rely upon what are in those ordinances. And if we demonstrate compliance with those standards and meet your ordinance, then the plan should be approved. I appreciate that not all people agree with the plan, not all people like the plan. You can have your opinions about how it may affect things globally, locally, but at the end of the day, there are rules, and there's rules that you have as the elected body taken an oath when you took office to enforce. So we've submitted a plan, we've addressed the comments that have been raised by your staff, been raised by your consultants. We've attempted to address the comments raised by the public to the extent those comments are reasonable and can be addressed. And we've submitted a plan at this point in time with the ordinance we presented tonight to comply with your ordinance. So would ask for your support in granting our approval of this plan resolution.
Mr. Khan? So assuming there's going to be, we're at the end of the presentation of evidence, right, I would say that the board will eventually want to propose this public hearing, but I would add that anybody who wanted to submit proposed findings of fact or briefs, no new evidence would be able to be submitted after. But if anybody wanted to make a legal argument or cite the provisions of the code or anything that you want to write, but once the hearing closes, no new evidence would be able to be submitted. However, between, the board's, going to consider all this between now and, it's on the agenda, but we're going to ask for legal argument, findings of fact, conclusions of law, what anybody would like to submit. If there's something that, an argument, again, no evidence, but if there's an argument that you think needed to be made, you can certainly submit that as well. And I think, I don't know, we're going to submit it to you. So just again, that's what we need to submit to D. Anderson at Township. tAnderson@indianatownship.com. So the record evidentiary is gonna be closed when we vote to close it, but again, that can be submitted.
What's
And
the
I would say,
time?
submitted by, 2 weeks from today is June 24th. So 2 weeks from today, that was submitted by June 24th, which is 2 weeks today.
And then our regular agenda, there is an item for potential approval, but I think it's basically not gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I think-
Considering that you're allowing people,
We're gonna
so
let
just,
people argue.
if anybody's trying to figure out whether they wanna stick around longer, it'd be good to let them know that it's probably
Like
gonna
I said,
go down a bit.
I'm speaking for the board, but we're gonna vote not at this meeting.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how that's going. So at that point, entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn the public meeting.
Well, this is to close the public hearing.
To close. So.
I will second the motion to close this public hearing.
Motion by Supervisor Jorgensen, second by Supervisor Hardwick to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, public hearing is hereby closed.